Hi there, this is an episode of Property in 20 podcast. Now, what is this Property in 20 is that this is an episode whereby for every 20 minutes, we'll be talking about anything and everything related to real estate. And this podcast is brought to you by Ceekay Soh District. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about Greater Southern Waterfront. Now, when it comes to Greater Southern Waterfront, that is something that a lot of people are curious about. And today, I have an expert with me here about Greater Southern Waterfront. And he is going to share with you his insights, his thoughts about this whole area. So without any further ado, let me welcome Fraser Porteous. Hi, Fraser.
Thanks, Ceekay. Thank you for the amazing introduction.
Right. So Thanks for being on the show.
No problem.
So let's start off with this with a very straightforward question, right? Because since today we're going to talk about Greater Southern Waterfront.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just share with everyone, like, what is this Greater Southern Waterfront about?
Basically, the Greater Southern Waterfront is the majority of the southern coast of Singapore, stretching between Pasir Panjang and the Marina Bay and Gardens by the Bay East area. Yeah. And it's like made up of a few different districts, but mainly is around District 4. And so what it is basically it's the name of what the government is calling the urban living transformation of that southern coast area.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically revitalizing the area and planning to firstly move all the docks from the ports down at that are or where all the shipping containers and stuff are, moving it all to the Tuas Megaport, which opens up a lot of land which they're planning to build like residential, private and public homes, commercial, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. So how big exactly is this Greater Southern Waterfront?
How big exactly?
Or maybe you can use a reference point, like, to share with us, like, roughly how big will it be?
If you imagine just imagine like, you got the Singapore map in front of you here, right? Okay. And at the bottom, you have where this pier sticks out where they have all the docks already. Okay. And stretches all the way across down the southern part. So it goes past Keppel Bay. It goes past Vivo City all the way around past, you have the St. James Power Station. And then past, you have the Marina Bay area where you have the cruise center and everything. And then all to Gardens by the Bay. Yeah.
Right. So that sounds really, really huge.
Oh, and it also includes Sentosa Island itself as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So why do you think the government came up with this Greater Southern Waterfront concept?
Well, first off, their plan initially to actually move all the docks and all the shipping container yards and everything to Tuas Megaport, right? And I imagine that, they want to kind of like compress all of the industrial and trading areas into a single compressed area. So it's rather than spread out on all the way around to the southern parts, right? So that they can actually increase the residential and commercial land there, so they can actually put up more housing and basically boost the commercial scene as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But why do we need such a big area then? Because, like, as you mentioned just now, it's such a huge area, right? So will there be an issue of oversupply, or, is there a specific market that this is actually targeted for?
Well, if you kind of look at the kind of properties that are there currently, so you have, like, let's say the Keppel, you have Reflections, Corals, the Caribbean, the Reef, and then Sentosa itself, you have Sentosa Cove. If you look at the portfolio of residential properties that are there, they are definitely what you would consider high-end luxury properties, right? Especially at the quantum that you're looking at for the prices of property there too. So it's definitely, I would say, marketed specifically towards a certain demographic, a certain net worth of population. Yeah.
But would there be so many of such high net worth coming in? Because since it's such a big area, it's crazy to imagine, like, how many high net worth would there be? Like, is that even possible?
Well, okay. First, we know that Singapore is very small. Okay, we have only so much space for the population that we have. So we definitely have a lack of supply, for sure. And having said that too, we're also expecting, or at least the government is expecting, to actually by, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, to actually increase the population even more by maybe like a million or 2 million, So that is also going to require a lot more space for people for housing. There's going to be a need for a lot more housing. The other thing is, okay, we know that Singapore is a financial hub. It's a like part of the world trade of Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a lot of people like to come here. It's very good for investments. It's very good for people who are coming here to invest their money in property and invest in stocks and to basically set up businesses and stuff too. Yeah, so there's definitely people who are interested to come into Singapore and, so to speak, settle down and handle their assets all from this hub. Yeah.
Okay. So have there been any form of like a government so-called program that they are coming up with for all these high net worth? Because I think when you're saying all these high net worth coming in, it's very hard for me to picture like exactly what kind of influx of high net worth we're talking about.
They have mentioned what is called the Global Investors Program.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is basically a program to attract higher net worth and ultra high net worth individuals to come into Singapore to either set up business or already they are part of a business and they're coming to expand into Singapore. And basically being able to meet the criteria that is put forward by the Global Investors Program. I wouldn't say almost guaranteed, but they have a much higher chance of getting the permanent resident status, the PR status.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, right, then will affordability be an issue for Greater Southern Waterfront area? Because if all this high net worth is coming in, then the only logical conclusion is that property prices is going to be pretty high in this area, wouldn't that be?
Yeah, for sure. But like I said earlier, I mean, if you look at the portfolio of properties that are here, even in the past, right, this has never been a cheap area.
True.
Like an area where it's meant to be affordable, right? If you take a look at, when Caribbean first launched or when Reflections first launched, right? And that was like 2007 or earlier, right?
Yep.
The price per square foot that we were looking at already, right, back then, and what it reached still during the launch phase. Back then we were like, wow, this is very high. This is incredibly high. But now, if you compare to where we're at today in terms of price per square foot, back then actually you think, actually it wasn't that high. But we've basically moved on from where we were before, what people were expecting, what people expect were expensive, right? And it's only going to get more expensive. Yeah. So I definitely say that it's more targeted, like the area of Greater Southern Waterfront homes, the private residential homes that are going to be there are more targeted to a specific demographic, maybe affordability range in like 3 million to 50, 60 million plus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is where, in terms of this, right, like I noticed that there will be some public housing in the area as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So we understand that those will be called the prime location housing.
Yeah.
Right, which likelihood will be at where Keppel Club is right now, right? So what are your thoughts about this? Because I think it's quite unique that since you mentioned this whole area is for all the high net worth, but then in the middle, right there, we have HDB flats.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on those?
Okay, so when you say right in the middle, I personally feel that I don't think it's going to be smack right in the middle, like as you say. Yes, they did say that there's going to be around 6,000 public prime location housing units in this Keppel Club area, right? As for where exactly everything's going to be, there's no detailed planning or information that we can actually go by right now. What do I think of the prime location housing? I think it's a very good idea, especially to okay, so if you're gonna, let's say you have this area at the Greater Southern Waterfront, okay, you have all this luxurious housing for ultra high net worth people to come in and settle down and live, okay, so on and so forth. imagine, how do you think that makes the people, the not so high net worth people who are, already the Singaporeans, how is it going to make them feel that how come there's no option for, for us to live in these
to make them feel
beautiful
a little bit more
waterfront areas?
balanced,
Yeah.
like they feel like they're not missing out on anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I would, with a grain of salt, I would say prime location housing at this Greater Southern Waterfront area is to kind of appease the locals, the Singaporean HDB market, right? And to give them a chance to have this beautiful greater waterfront living, right? And at the same time, I think it's, if you imagine, all right, so we know prime location housing, they're basically HDBs, right? We all know what HDBs kind of look like. They do look, almost uniform. There's nothing too unique about every HDB. But I do think that with the prime location housing, not only are they going to have, great locations, as the name suggests, but I do think that they will also inject a bit more architecture into these buildings too.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because if you look at the facade of the Greater Southern Waterfront and, what it's going to represent, the crown jewel of Singapore, it's going to have to look luxurious all the way.
True.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be sticking out like a sore thumb kind of feeling, right?
Exactly. Yeah. At least this is my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So I understand that you've been also very active, like handling resale listings in the area.
Yeah.
Especially at Reflections at Keppel Bay. So my question here, because I'm very curious, right? Like we all know that Reflections, if we look at the track record, it hasn't been the most profitable. Yeah, I do see like owners losing even up to millions of dollars in Reflections.
Yeah.
So why are buyers still keen on this project even though it is not that profitable?
Right. I'll take it from the beginning here. I think Reflections at Keppel Bay is a beautiful project. Right? You got this, what would be, an iconic building or residential building of Singapore. Okay. I do think that, unfortunately, the timing of the launch was maybe not so great, but something that couldn't be helped in the beginning. So we know, like, it launched around 2007.
Yep.
Right? And construction started happening soon after. But also what happened during this time as well, we had an economic crisis. We had the Lehman Brothers.
Yep.
Right? And then at the same time, not very long after, there was also, things like additional buyer stamp duty being introduced, which also caused a lot of buyers who, like, from overseas to maybe rethink their investment in property in Singapore.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah. So there was like many factors at play that kind of hindered what could have been, a launch like any other in Singapore. Like, we look at launches these days, right? 70%, 80%, almost 90% sometimes just sold out, like first week kind of thing. I feel like if we hadn't gone through if Reflections hadn't gone through all the issues during its launch in the beginning, I feel like it would have done much better than it had.
Right.
And why so? Okay, so of course back then when people who were buying, there was no additional buy stamp duty yet. So you had people coming in from overseas who, people like to invest in property in Singapore because, there's no capital gains tax, and at the same time, we were just pulling out of the economic crisis that followed the Lehman Brothers, and Singapore, being the government, being stable as it is with its economy and everything, recovered quite fast compared to the rest of the world. And this attracted attention from, eyes from all over the globe, especially people who are investors and, thinking, yeah, actually, this is probably a good place to put my money, to buy some property, to invest. Yeah. So that attracted a lot of people to come and to buy units at Reflections. Like, there was a lot of bulk buying as well, which also became a problem in itself.
Mm.
When there was a lot of investors coming in and buying many units at Reflections, this caused basically a spike in the pricing. Developers saw that there was a lot of interest, so they increased the price, and they kept increasing the price, and to the point where it got so high, and we were looking at a price per square foot of like 3,300 and that, and compared,
that was insane back then.
It got pretty high. So when you look at now, when you say you have unprofitable transactions and stuff, right? Many of the units there that are unprofitable, which there are a lot, I feel like most of them are at much higher prices. They were basically bought at much higher price point, like later on in launch when the launch was increasing the prices like to that 3,000 PSF mark.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in today, then by today's standards, do you think it is already a more safer entry price right now?
I think that we are very close to what it was at day one launch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So safer. Okay. Now that it's the lease decay. Okay, we're looking at a project that's got 86 years left on its lease.
Okay.
Around there, right? That's still a fair number of years. It's not like 80 years is like nothing, right? In terms of appreciation, will we see any more appreciation? Like, let's say you're coming in to buy Reflections, and you're an investor, you want to maybe sell after a few years and get your capital back, get your money back, and not lose too much money. I think you can still possibly break even at this point in time.
Okay.
In terms of appreciation and like coming out, exiting from your purchase there, I don't think there will be much appreciation, or if any, to look at right now. Yeah.
Right.
But
okay.
Those people who do currently buy there for investment are looking at return of investment through renting.
Right. So based on your experience there, like majority of the buyers, are they looking for investment or to stay?
Majority of people who are looking there are looking at own stay.
Okay.
Yeah. And how I know this is because I've met a lot of people who are very interested in Reflections. The same as me, they think the building is fantastic, beautiful building, and the waterfront is amazing to look at, especially with the marina and everything. Everyone wants to live facing right beside the waterfront. Yeah. If you're looking back towards the other direction, there's not as much interest, right? So that leads me to believe that people want to stay there because of the lifestyle, the beauty of the view that you get every day, and all that. And also because, those people that I meet, they also tell me that they're also looking at staying in this property themselves as well. Yeah.
Right. So how about Sentosa then? Because Sentosa is just right opposite. So that is also an area whereby, similar to Reflections, we don't see like a lot of capital appreciation. So in your opinion today, let's say, if we have investors or even own stay buyers, they're looking to buy Sentosa properties. It is still safe to enter Sentosa now?
My own opinion, I would definitely say it depends on your objective. Like, it depends on what you want. If you want to stay there and live there yourself, of course, we're looking at this Sentosa Cove area. It's a product like a region like no other in Singapore. If you stay there, it looks like nowhere else that you would live in Singapore. Like the views that you get, the kind of so-called closed community that you get within the walls of Sentosa Cove. And you can tell immediately by, if you've ever visited Sentosa Cove, by the people that you see there, by the people that you meet there and stuff. They're mostly expats as well, right? I'm guessing a lot of expats, they stay there. But also, if you are looking at, potentially getting a return on, like investing in a property there, I would say you definitely have to look much longer term. All right. It ties in to this whole Greater Southern Waterfront transformation. we all know, well, most of us know in property that Sentosa Cove is a leasehold. It's all leasehold land. There's no freehold land there. And it's definitely getting on in its years, right? And it's also very expensive. So if you're going to go in there and you're going to put down like $30-40 million on a landed house, for example, right? You want to see something back at least, or you want to break even at least. But it's quite old. So the potential to try and, go in there, maybe stay for 5 years, I feel like it's definitely not safe in that regard, right? You got to look much longer term. With the Greater Southern Waterfront transformation and also what they're going to do with Sentosa as well to rejuvenate the island, right? Might possibly even be looking at an en bloc situation for Sentosa Cove.
All right, that sounds pretty insane though, because like for Sentosa, of course, it's going to be very massive if let's say they're going to revamp Sentosa Cove. I can only imagine that like when that happens, it will bring up the whole pricing, those sky high levels. So, but of course, that is where in terms of this, that's why just now we asked about the affordability issue. And I think like my concern here is for people, would that turn the people against the government, whereby they feel like everything is all about leaning towards making money for the richer people. It's all the wealthy who get the benefits and the poor people are the ones suffering. So would that be something that you think might become a political sticking point?
Of course, there will be some pushback, so to speak. Like there will be some resistance there. But in the long term, I believe that Singapore government handles these things well. Like first, they have the prime location housing in play as well. And it's also not to say that there is no high net worth or ultra high net worth Singaporeans in the country too. So there are definitely locals who are going to be interested in this area as well. It's not like it's ruling them out completely. But why Sentosa Cove needs a revamp if it's going to help to draw higher net worth people in is, firstly, Sentosa Cove is the only place where foreigners or PRs can buy landed property. And we know that, those people at those higher tiers of income, right? Those people, those investors who are much higher net worth, there are good majority who would want to live in a landed property. They don't want to stay in a condo. They don't want to stay in like in condos where, it's just a different kind of like a lifestyle, So Sentosa Cove being the only place where they can buy landed, there's going to be great interest there. But the interest is going to be not so strong if they know that, okay, this place is getting on. The lease is not good. I'm going to lose money here if I put this much money in. So they need to bring that attraction back. They need to rejuvenate the area. They need to, renew the land lease and everything like that to make it more attractive, to bring in these people who are coming in through the Global Investors Program and everything. And I don't think there'll be resistance at first from locals and all, but they're not just revamping what would be private residential and all that. They'll also be revamping the commercial as well. So you got shops, you got retail, you got tourist attractions and everything like that, which is for everyone, not just for a specific demographic, So there's going to be something for everyone, even in terms of like, entertainment and attractions. Like, you have Universal Studios Singapore. There is also talk about what initially they called the Integrated Resort 2.0, which the Resorts World is looking at expanding on RWS. And possibly also, I think NTUC is also going to be putting in something into this project as well.
Downtown South, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So one last question for you, right, before we end off today's podcast. Maybe you can share with us, like right now at the moment, be it brand new or in the resale, which development along Greater Southern Waterfront is your favorite, and which one is your least favorite?
Oh,
and why?
My least favorite. Should I do my least favorite first then?
Sure.
Damn. You're making me sweat. Okay. Since you're making me choose, my least favorite would have to be the Caribbean.
Okay, why?
Well, you made me choose, basically. So what can I say?
That's the point, mate.
But mainly because of all the, because I'm a fan of Keppel Bay.
Okay.
Because number one, it's well connected, being very close to the MRT. Whereas, if you're on Sentosa Island, we know it takes some time to get off the island. You know what I mean?
Okay, true.
You got just a few roads only. And then you're also limited by the speed as well. So you'll be crawling out of the island, So it's for me, it's much more convenient in terms of transportation. Why Caribbean would be the least favorite is because of the age of the property. I have friends who stay at the Caribbean. I've been to the Caribbean many times. It's beautiful. I love low-rise developments. But yeah, the main thing is because how old the property is already. Yeah.
Right. So that means that you don't see as much upsides in this development. Is that what you're saying?
There's definitely upsides to it. People are very interested in staying there, but people are not interested in, buying for the appreciation value. You're either buying to live there or you're renting there. Yeah. Because we all know people who are renting, they don't care about how old a property is or whatever. They like staying in this area because of the waterfront view, right? The lifestyle in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about your favorite then?
My favorite, and this is for, the most obvious reason is because it's the newest there, right? Would be the Reef.
The Reef at King's Dock.
The Reef at King's Dock. Again, I'm someone who loves convenience, right? Of all the developments that are at Keppel Bay, this is the closest, like right smack next to Harbourfront, and you have the MRT there already. It's super convenient. You just cross the road, and you're in Vivo City Harbourfront Shopping Mall. Number two is just again, I like low-rise developments. I don't like because I'm scared of heights. FYI.
Oh! I didn't know about that.
I find the property is very unique too in terms of how they designed it so that everyone gets a great view. Whereas, typically a building is very squarish, right? And you either have the property that looks in one direction and that's it, but they designed this place where you can have different angles, whether you're, on the balcony or whatever, even like some of the other blocks which they designed, you can have a great view of, Mount Faber, and you can have a view of the dock as well. Yeah. So there's a very smart design there, which I personally like. And also the design in terms of the architecture. Yeah. And the interior design as well. It just appeals to me. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So now we know which is Fraser's favorite and least favorite development. All right. So thank you so much, Fraser. I think that's all the questions I have for you today. So thank you so much for being on our show and of course for sharing with us so much about Greater Southern Waterfront. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So now we have come to the end of this episode of this Property in 20 podcast. And of course, if you like this episode, then simply click on the like button, comment in the comment section below, or simply subscribe and follow our channels for more similar episodes in the future. All right, so that is all for today, and we'll see you in the next episode. See you.